Right. Empowerment is a word that is used and often overused and abused. So many people today feel disempowered in their lives and don't know how to get back control. And for leaders, it's a real challenge. Is empowerment is something everyone talks about, but how do you make it happen? Now, this is probably the only time I'm going to use this word a whole lot, because I absolutely abhor it because it's overused and abused so much. But what I want to do today is take a very different approach to empowerment from a different context that I think is going to give us some real tools to actually show, if you want to create more empowerment for yourself in your life, or as a leader, if you want to find ways to empower your people, I think we can get some traction here, because we're coming at it from a whole different direction. So what I'd like to do is start off the dictionary definition, I'll tell you, of empowerment is authority or power given to someone to do something. That's simple. But I think the second definition is much, much more relevant. It's the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially in controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. I think that's much more relevant to what we're talking about here. So yeah. The reason for the show came about from a conversation I had with a friend of mine a while back. And it's someone I know from a couple of my dance communities, salsa and the West Coast swing and such. And she was telling me about a class she took where it was very different experience from what a lot of other classes are. And what I realized as we were having this conversation is that really what she was talking about is this mythical thing we're talking about, empowerment, and she gained that experience. So what I'd like to do is introduce her first to share her experience, and then we're going to bring in the person who was actually involved in this, and then let's start to generalize it to say, okay, what can we learn from this to enable you to empower yourself more, and to, as a leader, how can you make things more empowering for your people? So without any further ado, let me first introduce my first guest today is Nicole LeBlanc Gallant. Nicole, can you share with me what we talked about that day when we were having coffee, about the experience that you had?
Sure, which is too funny because the day that we had coffee, I really didn't think we'd end up talking about this and it would be live conversation. Conversation between two friends on something that I experienced. And sometimes I think in life we tend to we hold things closer. Some of us do. I know I do at certain experiences, but this one was different. And what I was talking about that day was an experience where I'd gone to something as simple as a dance class, where I felt that particular time gave me more confidence, right, and made me feel stronger as a person by being in this environment, which was at Trena studio, given through Trena. Now, it's kind of like what I spoke about, which is, some people think it's hokey pokey. The empowerment is sometimes even maybe overused. People don't really truly know what it means. But for me, to be able to be in a room where you were accepted for who you were, didn't matter your background, didn't matter your age, doesn't matter your shape or size or ethnic background, didn't matter your flaws, didn't matter your character flaws. We were all the same in that room, and it was just that feeling of, for women in particular, where I think society, we're always have to look good, have to smell good. It's all about your physical appearance. But in this particular class, it wasn't about that. It was about being your own person in this class and feeling you and who you were in that class and what it means to be you. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. And I mean, that's why for me, I jumped on this when we talked about it, because I know what it's like to be in different dance classes and the different types of instructors, just as the different types of managers in the workplace.
Right.
And, there are people I know who are wonderful people, but then you're learning something from them, you do something, and you can look on their face as they're trying to figure out how to tell you how much you suck. And it's like, you know, all they look at is what went wrong. And it totally it makes you feel like, come on, they must have done something right. But they can't see that, right? But what you described was the absolute opposite, that you were able to really focus on what you were given was the gift of focusing on whatever you was that we're bringing. That was wonderful.
That it was okay, that however you moved in class, that it was okay, and to relish into who you were, relish into your own movement, and that you were in a safe environment, that you could experiment and do things, and it was okay. And that's huge. And whether it's in your personal life, a dance life, professional life, that concept would be huge if everybody were to grasp that. That it's because if people want to give you ideas, or if you want to learn, if you're going to have this back and forth conversation, whether it's in a dance class or it's professional or private, then you have to feel safe enough to be able to express those feelings back and forth, and that nobody's going to make fun of you, make you feel bad about it, or that you're wrong somehow. And I think that was that conversation that we had that day.
Yeah. And so what I want to do now is sort of get into what happened that way, because what happened to you in that dance class is exactly what's needed for each of us to feel more empowered, and exactly what's needed for every leader to be able to create more empowerment. So I want to really get into what happened there from the instructor's point of view. So my other guest today, we're bringing in Trena Graham from Trena's studio. Trena, how are you doing today?
Good, Ravi. How are you? Thanks for having me. This is my first time doing something like this. It's really cool. I don't understand how the cameras are going back and forth, but hey.
Don't worry, it works. So you've heard what Nicole was saying, and you know, as I said, I've done dance a lot. I've had different instructors, just as I've had different leaders and managers, and there's some people, like I said, that great people, but you can look at them and you see all they're looking at is what you're doing wrong, or others that are, you know, that try to be encouraging, but you know they don't really mean it, and so on and so forth. But what you've created there in a place where, as Nicole said, this was actually, I think, an all-female class, right? Was the choreography? And you are challenging people to be in a very vulnerable place, which is not unlike in the workplace when people have to try new things and do new things. But here is about the body in your case. And then you also do other classes like pole and so on and so forth, what women do. And so what I want to dig into is, first of all, what's your take on what Nicole said about her experience? And what is it that you think you do that enabled that to happen?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm so happy that, Nicole, you've had the experience that you have. It means a lot to me because, like you're saying, Ravi, that's exactly what I'm trying to help with and share the only thing I can really do is share my experience and what I've learned over the years, and try to pass it on to my students. And it really all starts in your thought process and the way you think. You know, we have choices all the time and how we view something, how we see something. And one of my favorite quotes, I don't know if you've heard it before, is when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So for example, we could have a perception of because like you said, in our case, we're talking about feeling comfortable in our bodies and being ourselves and letting our true selves shine through, right, in class, and then hopefully to take it out in your everyday life. And so, for example, you know, you could take a look at your, I don't know, a body part, legs, for example, and you could look at your legs and say, oh, you know, in my case, oh, they're short, or oh, I have cellulite, or, you know, oh, they're so much bigger than they should be, or too skinny, or whatever the case may be. But if you step back, you have a choice to change that thought or that view, and you could look at your legs and say, look, these legs, they allow me to walk around in the world. They allow me to carry myself and go places and see things and do things. And, you know, just that simple change in your thought process can help you appreciate yourself, starting with little tiny things and then working your way up to just sort of appreciating yourself as a whole. And that's what I started with. These ladies were with me for quite a few months, and we did little exercises here and there to try to bring that sort of thought process out, that positive thinking that then translates. Once you practice it enough, it translates into your everyday life. And so I'm really happy that Nicole had that experience. I don't want to get emotional. Woo! Okay, I'm good.
So I just want to pull out what I heard from you is that you're looking at what most people do is look at what isn't good about themselves or about others, right? Because we are a society of problem solvers. And so guess what? That means we look at what's wrong, right? We never look at what's right. What you're talking about is a discipline that's called appreciative inquiry. Is let's look at what's right about us. Now, you don't even have to talk in a teaching or leadership role. Most people ourselves, what do most people do is they look at everything that's wrong, right? They look at what is not right, and they gloss by everything that doesn't work. So I just want to pull that out, and I want to come back to that because I think that's really critical. The second thing is, I think thinking this is something, right, to look at what's there. But the difference that that gave Nicole that experience is that you authentically believe this. You can't just
Absolutely.
You believe it. Nicole?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It comes from a true, genuine place in her heart. There's no question that us as people, when we hear, whether they're compliments or we hear good job on a project done for work, you know in your heart when it comes from a real, authentic place. And that when it does, that also resonates and gives you more confidence because you know it's real. It's real. Somebody really means that. And that is a big feel-good moment.
Yeah, because you know when someone's saying something is just BSing you.
Right.
You know when they really, really mean it, right? So Trena, let me ask you, what is it that in your experience allows you to come into your class like that? And, you know, like everyone's you know, from beginner to whatever level. So they've got their ability. You've trained phenomenal. You're an incredible dancer. And yet you can come to them appreciating where they are at, as opposed to judging them, right? I mean, the thing that comes to mind, there's a coach I had once in one discipline. He walked around and looked like he'd sucked on a lemon every second, and like this. And the most positive thing he ever said was to our work was that, well, that wasn't a complete train wreck, right? And which is I'd say the antithesis of what you do. So let me ask you, what is it that enables you to come at people, whatever level they're at, from that place of respect?
That's a good question. Well, it really does stem back a long time ago. When I didn't always have this way of thinking. You know, I was a typical teenager. You know, society conditioned by society. And then one day my father passed away from a massive heart attack, just like that. You know, and it was a real, it was the most pivotal moment in my life. And, you know, I did go through years of depression after that. And to the point where I can remember one day I was driving down the highway and I took a bite of a chocolate bar and I liked the chocolate bar and I was like, this is good. And then a thought came into my mind, well, why do you deserve to enjoy this chocolate bar? You know, this was in the midst of my depression. So, and I told my mom, and so my mom ended up taking me to a psychologist to help me, because she could see that I was just very, very, very depressed. And so the psychologist talked to me about this technique called thought stopping, where you have a thought in your mind to switch it to a positive one. And so I started practicing that. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about that, but all in all, I started to practice these, you know, I could have went one way or the other. I could have kept on with the depression, you know, and self-loathing and, you know, hating the world, or I could go in the other direction. And that's what I chose to do. And so down that path, the things I started to experience when I would focus my mind and heart in the right place was the change was unbelievable. And I did change. I mean, I was a teenager at the time, yes, but as I grew and matured, I started to gain this appreciation for people. You know, I would be super sensitive if I would see somebody who was upset, especially if it was upset about themselves, like feeling that they're not good enough, or if someone, you know, bullying, that sort of thing, really, you know, it bothered me. And on the other hand, if you see somebody with this genuine joy on their face, you know, it just made me, it's the most lovely thing that I could ever wish to see. And if people can appreciate that every day, it just sort of starts to bring out this joy for life and appreciation for people. And then again, also, I love the uniqueness in people. Everybody is different. There's no other Ravi in this world. There's no other Nicole in this world. And so to bring out the best in you is awesome for you, you know, to make you feel good. And then the people around you, you just start shining this genuine light. And it's beautiful to see. So that's sort of where it started for me. And so, yes, I do truly, truly believe in it, just from my own experience. And I'm so blessed to be able to share my philosophies and with these ladies.
Well, that's, I mean, all I can say to that is, wow. It's, I truly appreciate your honesty, and it's like, you're just full on there. And it's really remarkable that this happened to you as a teenager. In my coaching work, I work with many people who are near the end of their careers, and they haven't gained that insight yet, right? They're still working on that. And the fact that you had the courage to do that, I mean, this is, I think, one of the reasons a lot of leaders aren't able to empower their people is they work up here. And leadership development is self-development. If you do not have the courage to go inside and do the work on yourself, your leadership will not change. You cannot build that sort of authentic respect that you have with your people. Thoughts on that, Nicole?
No, you're absolutely right. When I think of my own corporate experiences, what was the difference between a good leader and a bad leader? If you were to really break it down, that's what it is the bad leaders are the ones that are in it for themselves. They don't see the people for who they are. It's all about them. But the true leaders are those that are I had one manager refer to it as being an others person. You're interested in other people, their interests, what motivates them. And as a leader, when you can take yourself out of that picture and concentrate on your team, what is it that motivates them? What is it that gets them up in the morning? What are their values? What are their priorities? What is it that will make them tick? That's what's going to make you a leader, because then you'll be able to say stuff that's going to be relevant with who they are. Does that make sense? Right? That's my experience. I've had the experience of being under really great managers and leaders, and I've had the experience of being under really bad ones. And you get a really good, I mean, that sense of that balance. You're like, it's so easy now, in my experiences in my career, to really be able to point that out. It gets to a point where within 5 minutes you can go, yeah, I don't know if this is going to be a good leader, right? I don't think this is person, because you can tell. You can tell from that conversation. You can tell where that conversation is coming from, right? And you're right. If everybody was to come from a place of others, thinking of others, whether it's political, private, whatever, I think we'd all be in a better position.
Absolutely. So we've just got a few minutes left. What I'd like to do is really pull out, we've talked about the leadership, and I want to come back to that. I'd like to make sure we spend a few minutes for individuals who are not feeling empowered. What everyone can do to do that, to build that sense of empowering yourself, right? Because it's got to start there. And some of the things, the appreciative inquiry that I mentioned, looking at what's right? Because we dismiss that. I mean, it's like, oh gosh, people give you a compliment and you go, oh gosh, really not me, I'm not that great, right? Instead of, I think there's a line, people say false pride is wrong and arrogance is wrong, but I think false humility is just as great a sin. There's a line in between. So how can you start to appreciate what you're doing well is one thing for me to start and do that self-work that you talk about, Trena, to really start to appreciate yourself. So let me ask you, maybe Trena, you first, for an individual, what do you think an individual can do to grow their self-appreciation, to empower themselves? What are some things, you mentioned you do some exercises in your classes. What are some things people can do to appreciate themselves more and empower themselves further? Okay,
great question. And, for everybody, it's different. And, a lot of times they say, enlightenment comes from suffering, but I don't necessarily think you have to go through suffering in order to gain a new appreciation for yourself. But it starts from within. In my experience, it really does start from within. And you have to make a choice. You really have choices every single day in the way that you interact with people and interact with yourself. Because whether we realize it or not, we have an interaction with ourselves every single day. So what you say to yourself is very important, and awareness to me is key. Because if you don't have the awareness of when you are, for example, saying negative things to yourself, you won't be able to change anything. You can't change anything that you're not aware of yourself. So awareness is the key. If you start to practice, and practice is a key word because it really does take some time to get used to this. So if you start to practice being aware of your thoughts, whether it's towards yourself or somebody else, or just in the order of the day, are most of the things that you're saying to yourself negative, or are most of the things that you're saying to yourself positive? So awareness is first of all, because once you start becoming aware, then you can nip those little negative thoughts right then and there. And then you start to think of anything that makes you feel good. The first step is anything at all that makes you feel good, whether it's your family, your children, your pets, your friends, an experience that you have that you enjoy. And if you can think about that and just something that makes you smile from the inside, the more you do that, the more you start to appreciate the little things that you see every day. For example, I'm looking out the window, there's a beautiful green trees. Someone just drove by, I saw a smile on their face. These little things that can just make you feel alive on the inside. And then once you start to do that, it's an amazing feeling, and it will start to spread to others as well and make a difference in your life.
And I want to bring back what you said earlier as well about being aware of your thoughts, and you have this negative thought. Can you switch it, right? So, once you catch that thought, well, that's an interesting point of view. What else is possible, right? What other thoughts might be possible to sort of go that way? And the other thing that I think will happen is you start building that habit is a lot of people think they are their thoughts. They're not. Once you start observing them, you realize you're not your thoughts. You're the one noticing your thoughts.
Right.
And a lot of thoughts are in a loop, right? So
Right.
very cool. So, Nicole, any thoughts from you in terms of where are some leverage points for people to empower themselves further?
I think there's lots of things. It's like Trena said, everybody's different. For me, it had to do with surrounding myself with positive people, like-minded people. Reading, I've been reading a lot, read a lot of positive books, read a lot about self-discovery, or whether it's about, just making yourself a better person, whether it's your private life, or for me, I've been working on my professional life. So I just read that book. It was a very fast read. It was, How to Be a Boss, How to Be Your Own Boss by Lily Singh. It was funny, it was entertaining, but she had some really strong points, and it's all the same. It's about, thinking positively, and it's like Trena said, it's about your mindset, right? Having self-control over your own self-doubts and staying positive, protecting your vision. There's a lot of little points that I got from that book. So for me, it's just about reading positive things, keeping that positivity, how to overcome negativity, how to overcome obstacles by not seeing the glass half empty, but seeing it half full, right? And how to change that mindset. Trust me, it's not easy. It's not easy, but if you stick to it and you have that desire to be in that place, then it will come.
Absolutely. And I think all of those are true as well for leaders who really want to start to shift things. And again, this appreciative piece, to be able to start to look at your people and see what they're doing well and authentically celebrate that is massive. But honestly, as a leader, if you're not doing that with yourself and appreciating yourself, you're not going to be able to do that authentically with your people. So you have to do your work first. If you're going to work with people, you want to grow your effectiveness, you've got to do that do that work with yourself. So we are coming to the end of the time right now. What I would like to do is ask, and I'll just thank you ladies in a sec. I just want to put a reminder out there that in the Nugget Show, the 5-minute show that I'm doing on Thursday, there's the biggest issue, the biggest challenge in sort of being present and being aware of yourself with mindfulness is this head chatter that drives us wackadoodle. Okay, our heads just go wah, wah, wah. What I'm going to show you on the Nugget Show on Thursday in just 5 minutes, I'm going to show you how you can turn that inner dialogue, inner voice off in just a moment or two. So that's what we'll be getting into. Nicole, Trena, thank you both so much. You guys are absolutely amazing. Truly appreciate your honesty, your authenticity in this. And next week's profile show, we're going to be having Olympian Karen Furneaux on and talking about how she moved from into that yeah zone. So thank you, ladies. Truly appreciate your time. And we will be seeing you soon on the dance floor.
Thanks,
You
Ravi.
too. Thank you.
Bye.